Today, we are diving into a really timeless story. It's an ancient account of a Jewish family's journey out of their home in Jerusalem, traveling along the shores of the Red Sea and deep into this vast, unknown wilderness. And what's amazing is that it works as this powerful metaphor for our own lives, for all those times when we feel a little lost and we're just trying to find our own path forward.
We all face these moments, right? Times when everything feels uncertain and the path ahead just seems completely hidden from view. Well, this story asks that exact question, and it offers something like a map, a guide for anyone who's trying to navigate their own personal wilderness.
So here's how we're going to trace this journey. We'll go through 5 key stages. First, we'll talk about recognizing our own need for a path. Then, we get to explore this beautiful parable of hope. After that, we'll see the shift from just hearing something to truly knowing it. We'll learn about an unchanging promise that holds it all together. And finally, we'll see how it all leads to our own time to act.
All right, so first things first. Every single great journey, and that includes this family's trek along the Red Sea, it doesn't really start with a step. It starts with a realization, this moment of understanding exactly where you are starting from. What this ancient story is telling us is that the very first step toward finding your way is just acknowledging a fundamental truth about being human. Before we can ever find help, we kind of have to admit that we need it.
And this is a pretty powerful statement that the family's patriarch shared with his kids, but it's not meant to be some harsh judgment. Think of it more like a universal diagnosis. The idea is that on our own, we're all a bit lost. We all need a guide, what this text calls a redeemer, to help us find our way. And that realization? That's the real starting point for their whole quest.
Okay, so once we recognize that we need some help, the story doesn't just leave us stranded there, no. Instead, it offers this beautiful and really hopeful metaphor to light the way.
This is such a powerful image, right? Especially for a family with deep roots in Jerusalem, a land just filled with ancient olive groves. The parable compares the entire family of God, basically all of humanity, to one single noble olive tree.
So in this metaphor, the tree's branches have been broken off and scattered all over the place, a feeling I'm sure that family in the wilderness really understood, being so far from home. But here's the crucial part. The parable also has a promise that one day all those scattered branches will be found and gathered back together again.
So what does it even mean to be gathered? Well, the text explains that being grafted in means reconnecting with what it calls the true Messiah, that ultimate source of life and truth. It's all about finding our way back to our spiritual roots, no matter how far we might have wandered.
Okay, so this brings us from this big, sweeping parable down to the most important part of the journey. The one that happens inside each of us.
And here we see this fascinating dynamic happening right inside the family. The father, he's having these profound spiritual visions. He sees the path forward, but that's his experience. His son hears all about it, but he isn't satisfied with a secondhand account. He feels this deep, personal desire to know it all for himself.
And that is the key. The son's desire wasn't just, some idle curiosity. He wanted his own connection, his own witness. He wanted to understand these truths not just from his dad's words, but through the power of personal revelation, what the text here calls the Holy Ghost.
And that really makes you think, doesn't it? I mean, it's one thing to hear truth or to believe what our parents or our teachers tell us, but it's another thing entirely to seek it out until it becomes part of your own soul. What does that personal journey from belief to real knowledge look like for you?
So if we're going to go on that kind of personal quest, we need some assurance, We need to know that all that effort isn't just going to be for nothing. And that is where this next principle comes in and provides such a powerful foundation.
This is a core teaching from the story. It declares that God is constant. He is unchanging. The source of all truth doesn't just shift with the times or play favorites. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever.
So here's the really crucial point. Because God is consistent, the path to finding answers is also consistent. That promise made to the son in the wilderness, it's the exact same promise that's available to us today. It means that diligently seeking answers isn't some gamble, it's an invitation with a guaranteed response.
The text uses this beautiful phrase, one eternal round, to describe God's course. Think of it like a perfect circle. It's reliable, it's consistent, and it always leads back to the same eternal truths. It gives any seeker a dependable framework to rely on. And this brings us to our final section, where all of these ideas, our need, the promise, the path to knowing, it all comes together and gives us a real sense of purpose and urgency for our own lives.
The record gives our time here on earth a very specific name, our days of probation. And that's not a negative term at all, it's a powerful one. It frames our life as this precious, limited window of opportunity, a time to be tested, sure, but also to learn and to choose our path.
And what exactly are we preparing for? Well, according to this story, the ultimate goal of this whole journey is to return to a divine presence. The text is very clear when it says no unclean thing can dwell with God. So, in other words, this probationary time is our chance to grow, to refine ourselves, and to get ready for that sacred destination.
Ultimately, it all just boils down to this one simple but really profound truth. This life, this wilderness journey that we are all on, is our specific, appointed time to seek. It's our opportunity to move from just hearing about something to actually knowing it, and to find our own way on that constant, eternal path.
So we'll leave you with this final thought. The promise is clear. Those who diligently seek will find. If you were to take that promise seriously, right now in your own personal wilderness, what is the very first question you would ask?